Good afternoon. My name is Eric Olson, and I'm going to be your instructor or professor this term. This is Behavioral Neuroscience 4054, Fall 2025. Today, I'm just going to relatively quickly, go over the syllabus with you here. So here is the intro page. From here, I suggest going to the table of contents, which will help you to navigate the course itself, and of course the syllabus here, which we are now going to go over. So here you can see the syllabus. This is an asynchronous online course, meaning that by design, we never have to be in the same place at the same point in time. I find this to be still a very effective way to learn, and I pride myself on working very hard to provide the most flexible and engaging learning experience possible for you. We will, of course, go over a good bit of neuroscience content here. But one thing that this class used to somewhat be a bit of a redundancy to 2220. Both of them were basically sort of intro to neuroscience classes. Rather, I've moved away from that. And while we will learn a good bit of neuroscience content, we will also explore things in a very sort of different way. We'll get into things a little bit more deeply, and we'll also think about some of the historical context associated with some of the stuff that we've learned in 2220 and think about how it can plug into other classes that we've learned and also some applications of this information. We'll also emphasize some skill learning in here, in addition to your, honing your ability to write, research, and perform civil discourse. I will emphasize a lot of AI in this class, and we will think about using AI to help us with our research and writing and do so effectively, efficiently, and ethically. I've studied behavioral neuroscience and drug addiction for quite some time. I started doing this as an undergraduate researcher. Uh, while a lot of my early work involved neuropharmacology and drugs, a lot of this also involved behavioral neuroscience. A lot of my early work involved IV drug self-administration, where I would have measure how the brains of animals would change as they self-administer through a sort of a Skinner box. IV infusions of cocaine, opioids, a variety of substances. But I've also, done a lot of work studying avoidance behavior and fear and reward-seeking behavior of natural rewards. Behavioral neuroscience, behaviorism is very much an important part of who I am and how I think. So I think I'm sort of a perfect person to teach behavioral neuroscience. Sierra is our TA this term, and I think she brings a unique perspective to this class that will be great for some of our feedbacks and discussions. Feel free to touch base with her. I think, especially, I tend to have sort of a biomedical bias. So having someone more from the clinical psychosocial side in here to balance things out a little bit will make it the learning community all the better. And that's in addition to one thing to keep in mind in this class is I like to think of it as a learning community. I want us all to learn together. We're going to have various other source materials like that I'll go over in a little bit, like Eric Kandel and Robert Sapolsky. But these leading experts, myself, we're just voices in the room. AI, just another voice in the room. We shouldn't believe everything AI says. We also shouldn't believe everything Sapolsky says, or I say, or even Kandel says, even though he's a Nobel laureate. These are all just voices in our learning community, and we value your voice as well, all of them. I think the greatest thing about CU Denver is the student body and how unique and diverse you are, not only in terms of identity, but also your backgrounds and the way you think. We should have every one represented in here. We have probably 50-year-old nurses, we have parents, we have 18-year-old students, who have really not done much more work than lifeguarding for a summer or two. We have people that have been through hospitals in a variety of contexts. And so there's so much, unique experiences and perspectives. It's really quite unique, I would say, of all the colleges that I've been at and worked at and learned in, to have this sort of diverse, broad, unique panoply of viewpoints. So let's take advantage of that and listen to each other's diverse perspectives, and be open to unique viewpoints. Uh, Not saying you have to accept them. We definitely don't need to accept everything that Robert Sapolsky says, for example, or even I say. But it is, uh, at the very least, something that can encourage cognitive dissonance, or the clashing of ideas, which can lead to a very deep thinking and learning. And sometimes, you can learn the most about your own convictions and what you believe by being confronted with somebody that you completely disagree with. And that can be a beautiful, beautiful thing for learning. So in this sort of unique class, rather than having a just traditional book like Carlson, or in this class, Once Upon a Time, we had this Breedlove textbook, which you can still use as a supplement if you'd like. However, I don't think that's necessary. For all of the sort of the lecture material that I'm going to give you, everything will be completely contained within the lecture, that will you will then be tested on. I'm not going to pull any punches or find things from some textbook that I don't cover in lecture. And then if you need, additional information, to help understand what I go over in lecture, you can reach out to me. Candel's book covers a lot of it as well. And then the internet and even AI, I think, can be great resources for you that I encourage you to explore a little bit. So in addition to that, my lectures, we will also be learning from Eric Kandel, a Nobel laureate. So every module, we will be reading at least one chapter from a book that he wrote, where he goes over a lot of the sort of the basic concepts in neuroscience that you've already learned in 2220, and that we'll learn again here, maybe to a different level, or a unique level at the very least, not necessarily a higher level of content. Uh, but he often frames things within a historical context or in an applied, medical way. And I think that adds a lot to the content, enriches it. In addition, we will be reading another book by Robert Sapolsky called Determined: Life Without Free Will. This is a very provocative book. My goal here, and it's much less sort of content driven here. So with this book, I want you to think of it as just a deep thinking exercise. While I might even intend for you to believe some of the stuff that Candell says or I say, and not saying that you have to, but these are more sort of content, objective, empirical based concepts in neuroscience. With Sapolsky, we get more into the sort of the philosophical side of some of the biggest pictures in neuroscience. Most importantly, like what makes us do what we do. Some neuroscientists, including Sapolsky here, will argue that pretty much everything that we do comes from the brain. All action comes from the brain. Your identity comes ultimately from the brain. Your conception of reality comes from the brain. Your perception of everything that you interact with comes from the brain. And if the brain is basically a sort of a form of a programmable computer, then at some level it is determined. Many of these things. So whether or not you go out and commit a crime, or go for a beer after class, or go exercise after class, or go to the library and study after class, many of these choices, uh, and this idea that you have free will over these things, controversially, could be argued to be a bit of an illusion. And alternatively, and the your history in life, your caregivers, your peers, your friends, your colleagues, the society that you're in, your culture, all of these things would have sort of molded your proteome and genome to create the connections in your brain that more or less dictate the actions that you choose, your perception of the world, your conception of reality, and possibly even your identity, possibly your personality. There's some debate over how much of that is inherited, how much of that's shaped. A lot of this does sort of come back to this old sort of nature nurture thing, but sort of reframes it in a way of how much of this really is the brain, and the brain sort of being programmed by things like culture, environment, caregivers, development, these things, school. So yeah, heady stuff, heady stuff. And then we'll also consider, what are the implications of this? So, I mean, if you do believe, or, at least entertain this notion that, your brain is programmed and leads you to either go out and study more, or go out and get loaded, or go out and commit crimes, uh, you know, what are the implications of that information for things like how we deal with crimes or people getting loaded versus studying and being what we might call being a productive member of society? If basically you're a product of your brain being programmed by culture and society and environment and caregivers, what does that mean in terms of dealing with these things? Should we have more reform programs versus punishment programs? Is this set the stage for restorative justice? What does this mean for how we might treat offenders of our societal norms? So those are things that we will contemplate as well. So I have links to these books here. Feel free to use these links as much as you want. You can also buy hard copies. I think there are some in the bookstore. I think it would be cheaper to get online a used copy. There are tons of them out there. You can also listen to these as audiobooks. There are many programs that are out there to listen to these as audiobooks as well. So I expect continual attendance and active participation in this class. Discussion is key. We are a community, a learning community. I want you to learn as much from each other and Sapolsky and Candell as me. Let's all learn together here. The idea is not to become a mini Candell or a mini Sapolsky or a mini me. The idea is to hear all of these different ideas and also learn from our peers, and then think about how these things relate to our own learned experiences and things that we've accepted from other courses and life events, and put everything together at the end. And let's interact as a community. The classes, I've taken hundreds of classes at this point, and the classes that I remember the most are those where I learn as much from my other peers and other speakers as I do the professor themselves. It was just one professor, the sage on the stage at the top front of the room, and you're just sort of listening to them, copying notes and regurgitating them. Those classes I always forget. And right, I don't want it to be like this. I want us to all learn together and take advantage of that great experience of your peers that exists in this very unique learning environment at CU Denver. I do have this policy that you get one unpenalized 48-hour period for one assignment. This is really there to keep you on track. Being consistent, staying on track is the best way to do well in this class. However, know that I'm flexible and accept that life happens. I really don't even need a bunch of excuses. And frankly, I consider some of that to be a bit nosy. I don't, if something comes up that causes you to get behind, feel free to reach out to me and know that I will be flexible and work out something with you without asking a bunch of probing questions. Some people get deployed in the military. Some people have various run-ins with the criminal justice system. Some people, become unhoused or have to leave under their living situation under duress. I've seen many of these and worse situations, hospital things happen. I don't need to know. I respect you. You are an adult. I am here to help give you the best learning experience possible. I want to help you get to the end. I don't want to weed anybody out. It's not my goal to, and I don't need to know all of these things that might be hindering you. I know that I'm sympathetic to them, but that I'm also just willing to help everybody here. So, if there is some life event that comes up, just know that you don't need to bring me a doctor's note or a judge's note. Just know that I am there. The TA and I were on the same page here. Reach out to us. Reach out to the TA if you don't feel comfortable coming to me, although you should. And just ask for some flexibility, some grace, and we will work with you. I believe fully committed to universal design. I see accommodation and inclusion very broadly. I believe in, similarly, I don't really need a learning center note. I will, of course, honor all of those, but, or disability services note. I will honor all of those, but, if you need some sort of accessibility option that I'm not is not there for you, let me know, and we will do our best to work on it. Similarly to inclusion, I want everybody to feel included here, in addition from an identity perspective and also a viewpoint perspective. All people, all backgrounds, all viewpoints are welcome in this classroom. In fact, I encourage civil discourse. So for every module, and there are 8 total modules in this class, you'll have one closed note quiz, one open note study guide, which is a bit like a quiz, but of course it's open note. So I would work on that first. And if you do a good job and feel comfortable getting through the study guide that's open note, you're probably ready to take the closed note quiz, both of which would be due at the end of the 2-week module. You're also responsible for creating a deep thinking paragraph and participating in peer discussion involving it. All of this will involve the Sapolsky book. The study guide will be heavily based on the Candell book. So every week you'll be doing readings from both of those books, with the Sapolsky being more geared toward deep thinking philosophy, really sort of, challenging some of our deep-seated conceptions that are relevant for behavioral neuroscience. Again, I can't overemphasize that you don't have to agree with Sapolsky. You can call him an idiot. You can say, I completely disagree with Sapolsky in this chapter. Here's why. That is, exactly what I'm going for here. You're also, of course, allowed to agree with Sapolsky. I respect Sapolsky a lot. I don't always agree with everything he says. I think he is also, I'll point out, a very natural storyteller. He is the person that you want telling campsite stories. He is probably the best natural storyteller in the field. I cannot be as good of a storyteller or natural lecturer as he is. He is just the elite in this way. He has this great sense of conveying sort of neuroscientific and endocrinology thoughts in a very just conversational way that cannot be emulated. So, in addition to those deep thinking questions, you will be, over the course of a term, working on this scaffolded essay. So, first, I would like you to think of a topic inspired from either the Sapolsky or Candell book that you will explore further through your own independent research. Then, develop an outline based off of that idea that you will submit to me at midterm for feedback. There is a template at the end of the syllabus. All you have to do is fill out, submit it to me, and then get some feedback from me. Then you will develop an annotated bibliography where you also use AI here. I've created this accompanying website here to sort of walk you through the process there. You will insert some articles from your annotated bibliography that you find most relevant and interesting and want to explore further into a Google Notebook LN, which will create a podcast that you can then share with your peers and sort of share where you're going a little bit with them as well. Then you will develop a chat GPT essay. This is another form, this is a chat bot. Then you will critique that essay a little bit. I think you will find that these AI generated essays have some flaws and some strengths. It's certainly not perfect. You shouldn't allow AI to speak for you, but it's just another voice. And I think it would be, I think we're to the point now that we need to learn how to effectively use that voice. Think of it as just another sounding board, and that's another beauty of these chatbots and AI. You can give them prompts and ask them really, frankly, silly questions that you might feel uncomfortable asking anybody else. So it is a non-judgmental sounding board that you can ask all sorts of related prompts and silly questions to, and get responses to that you can then consider. I'm not saying accept. Certainly don't let this be your voice or replace your voice, but just think of it as another voice in the room, another perspective that you can use uh, when you are then, for your next step, writing your own original essay. So the quizzes will count a little over a third. The Candel open note outlines will count around 10% of your grade. The deep thinking paragraphs, based on the Sapolsky book, count about 25% of the grade. And then the remainder of the grade will be determined by your essay. Discrimination is not accepted here. If you think that I or any of your peers are discriminating against you, you should contact the Title IX office. We will, discuss various very sensitive topics in this class, particularly when the Sapolsky book can really get on into some sensitive topics. I mean, even like challenging the conception of free will is a very sensitive one. Free will is baked into a lot of religious beliefs. I'm not saying you have to accept Sapolsky. If anything, quite the opposite. Think of it as a null hypothesis. Challenge Sapolsky. Let him give you cognitive dissonance that will trigger deep thinking. Feel free to push back against Sapolsky here. But I guarantee you it will make you think deeply. I also want you to learn how to discuss sensitive topics and engage in civil discourse with your peers. I think that this is unfortunately something that we are not doing so much as a society, and we are much worse for it. I think that, the different uh, uh, sort of poles of thought need to interact more. And I would love to see that here. Not all of us should agree on whether or not there is free will. Not all of us should agree on whether the prison system should be replaced with restorative justice. Not all of us should agree on, whether or not we should bring back, asylums, even something that's being debated. Uh, how do we deal with things like the unhoused in society? How do we deal with criminal like reform? How do we deal with drug dependency? What about identity? Gender identity. This is a topic that we will explore a bit in this class. How much of a role does the brain and hormones play in one's gender identity? There is, of course, we will learn room for culture and society to shape, the brain and the development of the brain and the development of its interaction with sex hormones. How central is that in actually constructing one's gender identity at the end of the day? Again, not everybody will agree on this, and this is fine. We can have some civil discourse on these topics, but they are very sensitive. So keep that in mind. So I would like you to challenge ideas you disagree with through reason and debate rather than avoidance or suppression. Challenge the idea, not the person. We don't want to attack people or try to call them out on social media or these sorts of things in this class. Be willing to lean into difficult conversations and consider diverse perspectives. Acknowledge that we come from different backgrounds and bring unique perspectives. Uh, you know, uh, in this class, interesting. I think that, and I teach the hormones and behavior course as well, and we talk a lot about gender identity in that class. And I think what's one thing that I picked up on is that this topic is especially challenging for some people from non-Westernized cultures. People from every culture in the world, this is an international campus, is welcome to participate in these conversations, and their viewpoints are valued as well. There are also very interesting religious interactions here. In addition to free will, things like gender identity, can be polarizing things in different religious circles. So, it's really a lot of the international, community that I have uh, experienced some students wanting to opt out of certain discussions, and know that that is allowed. There. Uh, so that gets into my general content warning. We are going to discuss some sensitive topics in here, such as socioeconomic status, race, prisons, mental hospitals, psychiatric disorders, sex, gender, death, suicide, war, and sexual assault. Many of these topics can come up in various conversations or discussions, and this is not meant to be, flippant. None of these things are taken lightly. This is all done to really push you to think about behavioral neuroscience, in very impactful and socially relevant ways. However, I understand and recognize that, especially given one's life history, and beliefs and backgrounds and identity, this can manifest in feelings of discomfort and upset. If there is a topic that is too upsetting to you or a discussion that is too upsetting to you, you may opt out. You may walk out of any discussion, any lecture. Let me know if that happens, if you need to excuse yourself, and I will find an alternative learning option for you to earn full credit. As I've said, I've had this happen multiple times, especially, people have basically claimed religious or cultural exceptions, particularly from a non-Western points of view. And you are all welcome here. All political persuasions, all religious persuasions, all cultures from around the world. I welcome you here to the shared space of communal learning. Again, I think all viewpoints should be able to be shared, all identities, all backgrounds, but in a civil manner. It's important to learn how to discuss these things civilly, But if you do feel that you need to back out or walk out of a discussion, feel free to and contact me. We will work out another way for you to earn full credit. Here's your typical calendar of events. So again, there are 8 modules. Everyone is going to occur over a 2-week period in this class. In each one, you'll need to review lecture material from me. Read usually parts of the Sapolsky chap book. Post a deep thinking paragraph on it. Respond to your peers. Read the Candell book. Fill in and upload the study guide that's open note. Respond to 3 peers' deep thinking paragraphs from the Sapolsky chapter, and then complete the closed note book quiz, which will be based on my lecture material and a little bit on the Candell chapter, both of which the study guide will help you prepare for. So basically, we will occur like that in this recurring pattern. And then over the last 4 modules here, you will have sort of scaffolded essay components. We'll start with an outline that I'll try to give you rapid feedback on. The annotated bibliography with that Google AI podcast, your AI generated essay, and then your original essay. Here are your templates at the end. Feel free to contact me through email. You may request a Zoom meeting at any time. I do Zoom meetings on demand. Happy to do many over the course of the year. The TA is also happy to meet with you if for whatever reason you want a different perspective or don't feel free or comfortable approaching me, although again, you should. I, am very flexible, want to be as inclusive and accessible as possible. And again, really want us to learn together as a learning community. So please post as much as possible, and please learn as much from your peers, Kandel and Zapolsky, and our other guest lecturers like Ben Bares and Anil Seth. These are all great minds with very unique perspectives, unique identities. Ben Bares, I've had the pleasure of hearing speak several times before he passed away recently. But Ben was one of the sort of first prominent transgender neuroscientists. I heard him speak as a woman and then as a transgender man. Interestingly, in addition to talking about his own research, which involved glia, his own sort of perspectives involving the neuroendocrine basis of gender identity. And one thing that he also used to speak a lot about that I want to just point out real quick is he spoke a lot about on how he was perceived as a scientist, both as a woman and then as a transgender man. And he used to give. I think things have changed quite a bit from when he started to give these lectures. Many years ago. But Ben used to speak about how he used to be disregarded a little bit more by offering a female perspective. And of course, women were historically marginalized, in the scientific community really for many years. You sort of had to be a Marie Curie type figure to have a lab. So I do think that things have changed quite a bit in this way. But anyway, just thinking about things from unique perspectives. I can't really think of anybody that's made me do so much more than Ben Bares. Not only from the context of what it would be like to be a female scientist versus a male identifying scientist, but also he made me think a lot about the neuroendocrine basis of gender identity and got me thinking a lot about that. And of course, we'll explore that further with Eric Kandel leading the way a little bit here as well. But anyway, we will talk about lots of fun, interesting, thought-provoking topics in this class. I look forward to learning as much from you as hopefully you do from me. I value all of your voices and want to learn from your learned experiences, what you've learned from other classes as well. Feel free to bring in other class material, especially if it contradicts me or Dr. Kandel or Dr. Bares or Dr. Sapolsky. This is a learning community. I want us to learn together and think about everything uh, before you come to your ultimate conclusions, rather than you just accepting what I tell you or Sapolsky tells you. That's no way to learn. So that anyway, that's sort of the general overall philosophy of the class. I know that I'm very flexible and believe in maximal inclusion and accessibility, topics that I think of broadly. Feel free to let me know if you have any questions or concerns. I look forward to sharing this learning experience over the course of the semester with you.